Reverend Christian King is a local pastor, a former real estate agent, and a community leader. And she's concerned about the future of her community, City of Charleston's District 7. And that's why she wants to be the next representative for District 7 on City Council. I sit down exclusively with Reverend King for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Reverend Christian King, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you greatly.
Okay.
Obviously, you are a former real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
You are a community leader, a reverend, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And now you are running for Charleston City Council District 7.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why, Reverend King, why now?
Because I have watched a number of things that are going on, but mostly communication that I felt was needed and voices that needed to be heard from my community that I don't feel was heard. And as I watch various things play out, and the fact of my community not being aware or being engaged because we didn't have the information and our representative could have shared it with us, or in seeking, I think it's more that in connection that it is time.
What information would you like to get from your current city councilman now in regards to District 7?
Well, one of the communications that I would like to know is that there's going to be a vote that's coming up soon in regards to the Citadel Mall. And the plans for the Epic Center has just passed the architectural review, right, and it's going to City Council.
Sure.
Well, in looking at there was a number of things in the overall package that concerns us in regards to that I feel would influence or impact us in regards to overdevelopment, flooding, and the height of the building.
Yes.
And affordable housing, affordable and also, let's say, workforce housing. Whereas in the Citadel Mall proposal, right, which is, by the way, 52 pages, sure, and the average person is not going to read that. But I would hope our city council would go through and be sensitive or aware of some of the things that we would be concerned about, and come and share it with us, and let us be familiar with those type of things as we go through to engage on September 11th in the conversation about the plans.
In those 52 pages, Reverend King, what particular section concerns you the most?
What concerns me the most is that there is no clear or specific details really in the entire 52 pages. They are proposals or what could possibly be, and some of the things that they would be looking at, but there's no definitive aspect in terms of how you're going to engage the surrounding community so that what you're doing does not impact them in such a way that you now have almost a gated community right next to a low-income housing units, as well as community who's also struggling. How it's going to be open so that that community is still an integral part of that area, as well as the new things that you're going to bring together. How are you going to blend those? Also, workforce housing, sure, where housing is a part of what the plans are. What we've seen in other developments is that you go through and you say, we got housing and we got affordable housing. Well, we got affordable housing that go from anywhere like $1,600 for a efficiency to almost $4,500. And in this community, which is primarily our salaries are really almost basement, level. There are not many average people who can afford those kinds of housing availability.
But what is it, Miss Dr. King? Reverend King?
I know, people do that all the time. Yeah.
Is it affordable housing or is it workforce housing?
Well, affordable, they're using the grid that says that the average income is, let's say, whatever, and so that they can charge up to the $1,500. But the workforce housing is that based on the fact that you make $8 an hour and not 15, which is a livable wage, we're going to go through and apply what you pay for rent based on what you earn, rather than a scale that our community doesn't even meet.
Let me get back to your Facebook page. You said this quote: "Over the past few years, I have been concerned about the lack of connection and communication with our current city council member."
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to overdevelopment in your mind, where's that connection and where's the communication coming from?
Well, I can use this same scenario with the Epic Center, Citadel Mall,
Sure.
and the communities that's right across, which is known as Arlene's Gardens and Arlene's Woods. And the city had a meeting with this community in terms of saying to them, listen, there are going to be some major changes over at the Citadel Mall. Well, we're concerned that you're not affected in terms of gentrification and all of this. So we have this proposal where we're going to do a grant where we can do some training and do some choices and leadership development in your community, whatever it is that you want. Well, that meeting almost was, I'll just say, challenging, because the people, without someone going through actually talking to them and preparing them and really having talked with them beforehand, including our representative, they were under the impression that the city was out to steal their property. And so the meeting was kind of derailed for a time period in terms of getting them to understand. So as I'm watching this, Quintin, part of the thing that came to me was that in 1965, somewhere along in there, HUD wrote a paper that was called Ladder of Participation. And this was for government and other entities, especially with housing, to go through and be able to understand how to bring communities and citizens together to be engaged in conversations where there's level of participation there. And in this years, in terms of this being out here, I was introduced to it in youth development. And one of the key to that issue is that you go through and you communicate with the people. And you also let them understand in terms of, as you're talking and what you're proposing, this is not a system in terms of I'm informing you, or or that you're a token, or that, this is a name only, but we're coming and we're going to give you the authority and the voice to go along with that. And unfortunately, that was what I saw that was missing. Now, this is something that I knew and had been exposed to, and I continued to watch over time as these kinds of communication and development happen. And I felt it was now time to go through and for someone to say, let's connect by communicating in terms of really talking to you, and you making the decisions about your community, you're being there, and me coming and sharing with you as opposed to me telling you and informing you what I'm going to do.
Well, then, for the average person who's sitting here right now watching this particular interview, what is your proposal for really slowing down gentrification in many people's mind?
One of the ways in terms of slowing down gentrification, I think, is to go through and to stop the overdevelopment in a lot of areas, which seemed to open the door and really began to push that to give the people in the community more of voice to be able to stop and reduce blighting, to be able to give them funds and the voice to say, what would a revitalization of your community look like? What would you want? How do you propose in terms of it being done? With ideas and solutions coming from that community and actually hearing that community, what do they want? What are some of the things that you feel your community is your community need? Because one of the things that would also make a difference or tool for sustainability is a best practice called asset-based community development, where it focuses on the voice of the citizen within that community and is not traditional where someone outside government, other agencies or whatever come to tell you what's there, but you look at your assets within your community and you begin to change your community from the inside. So when it comes to gentrification, and especially we have a lot of older people, and one of the ways in which what happens oftentimes is that they begin to lose their homes from not being able to pay their taxes and a number of things that kind of price them out of their homes. So with asset-based community development, with going through basically communicating with those citizens, then you begin to know what's needed and you stop it right there.
If you were on city council today, how many votes would you get for that?
I think I would get a lot of votes for that because of the number of people who really feel that their voice is not heard. And here's one of the other things, Quintin, about me, is that I choose to make it my business to listen, to really hear what you're saying, to go through in terms of if you have an issue and you're sharing with me, I'm going to walk with you through that to get it resolved. If it's something that I can't, is for you and I have to help to explain that, or if it's a responsibility of something that comes from city council in terms of your vote or the way, your opinion in terms of which way as your representative I should represent you, that I'm there to help fight to the end for that.
Let me go back to your Facebook page. You said this too. Attacks on the mayor is not in the best interest of our city or our community. What attacks on the mayor are you talking about?
Well, I feel that our recent audit and the way in which the presentation of the audit was handled was not in the best interest of our city, and that it seemed to come down a little bit too personal in regards to the issue. And I also feel that if we're going to be solution oriented, we don't deal in personal attacks in terms of on individuals or the intent there. What the city council asked for, it was presented to them, and even the outside auditor felt that the scope of which the city council, certain other members were were exceeding the scope of what they originally asked for. So at the time that I wrote that, the audit had been presented, but it was a question as to whether or not it was going to be accepted, or now we're going to expand it into another area. And from the things that was presented, there was so much in terms of it seemed more personal, and especially when some other members were getting ready to up for re-election as far as running for mayor themselves. And so I looked at all of that and just felt, it did not benefit the city for us in terms of spending all of this time and this money doing this as opposed to going through talking about policies, talking about the flooding issues that we have, and where are we going to get the money from in order to meet what is needed in order to address our flooding issue. Are we going to go through and handle the policy in terms of like the county is wanting to take the money that we voted for and to use for other things and make it use it for 526 rather than going through using it for flooding. So those things, yeah, I felt were a little too much there as opposed to focusing on what policies and things that we needed for city council to focus on.
And if an average viewer were to look at this interview right now and say, well, hey, personal tax. They were asking the mayor simple questions about allegedly Roy Willie getting $80,000 as a consultant. Are those personal tax, or are they just asking questions for the constituents?
Well, on those particular instances where they now moved over in terms of asking, let's stop a minute and let's first ask what was asked of the auditor and was that done? The auditor had presented that, and now something new was coming up in regards to Roy Willie. When we go through and we look, first of all, at what the auditor asked, did he do his job? Did he answer the question? What was there? Are you going to accept the question? And to me, that was where it began to be muddy in regards to the auditor report, because now city council, without their due process of everything, began to say, let's add more in, let's do this, let's do that. So it began to come across in terms of when will enough investigation be enough. Now, in regards to Roy Willie and his involvement and the money that was paid to him, my understanding is that he went through the regular process of which before this city council, those same members were very much aware that he was there, and they, I'm certain, could have asked if they did not know that he was being paid and a question of what he was being paid. Now that this came up and the amount of money that was paid is a question of the amount of money, and it was also a question in terms of what was the work product, what was there. But all of that, according to the auditor, and according to, basically according to the auditor and ethics and the rule of law, was all within the mayor's purview. So there was nothing that was illegal, there was nothing unethical, which was there. If, however, which is one of the wonderful things that I felt the auditor brought out, if you as a city council member felt that there was more there, and especially something that was unethical, rather than holding up this audit, go through, you are free to go through yourself and file for an ethics report and an ethic inquiry in regards to everything. So we're talking two things that we're trying to roll into one.
Now, a lot of the city council members that spoke to me basically say, hey, we have questions about the contracts. We don't know where these contracts are coming from. Why are we paying this guy $80,000 in taxpayers' money?
Okay.
If you were to talk to a citizen right now, a constituent about this, what would you say?
Okay. If I were to talk to a citizen right now, I would say to them that, first of all, if there's questions about that and you have questions, then we would have to go through and ask in terms of what was the contract, what was the agreement, if there's nothing that's in writing, but it has been approved and gone through legal process. Was there anything unethical or questionable about any of that. And if it's not, and if it's within the mayor's preview to be able to do that as a mayor, and do understand we have a strong mayor focused government and administration.
Okay.
And so, and these are probably processes. And remember, what he's the second mayor that we've had in 40 some years.
Right.
Okay. And this way of doing business, which is the traditional, probably the traditional way of doing it, has probably been done since the previous mayor. So now we're looking at it, and if we're uncomfortable with how it outflowed, if there's nothing illegal or unethical, then it's time to change that practice.
And I know Roy Willie apparently told the Post Reporter that this is all volunteer work. Mm-hmm. And many people are still asking, if it's volunteer work, why did he get the money?
Because however the agreement was, that was there. And he did volunteer work for some things, and for others he was charging for, and the agreement was there. Then you honor the agreement that you have with him and allow him to go through and volunteer and do whatever work. There are many people who will go through and will charge you for certain things, but then because they like what you're doing or like you personally, may go over and above and give you extra that actually they're donating in terms of their time.
Is that what the mayor did?
I have no idea, and I'm not saying that was what the mayor did. And I'm trying to say that Roy, based on what I understand, has the opportunity in terms of that there's nothing, again, unethical or criminal or illegal in terms of what the way in which he did that. If he's working for someone and then want to go through and volunteer or contribute his time, he's more within the rights to do that.
But is that a waste of taxpayers' money?
For him to contribute his time, how is that the taxpayers' money?
Allegedly, he got $80,000 in work.
But see, that is an idea where we're trying to roll all into one. Let's stop and let's be honest here. These are two separate things. If, in fact, he did work for the city and whatever documentation, whatever is produced there, the audit has showed that it was not illegal, it was not unethical, there was nothing wrong with that. If he did the work and he's entitled to his pay, he's billed, everything was there, that's fine. What additional work that he did, he said that he volunteered, that was within his rights. So what is there that people are uncomfortable about if there is, you feel, a separation or something that should be written or put in place to say, okay, I'm going to cook this meal for you and I want you to pay me that. But then when I serve it to you and I go through and I make you a smoothie to go along with that because I think that would complement your meal, I'm doing this from my heart. But if you want to make certain that I'm not paying you for it, you want some kind of documentation, do so.
If you were on city council and you're looking at this from the city council's point of view, and some city council members say, hey, we have city attorneys, we have staff members who can sit here and watch city council meetings. Why do we have to waste money on this person? What do you say?
I say the attorney that's there and whatever his job was, who was he hired by? Was he hired by the mayor for a special purpose? I'm asking, do you know? Do you know?
I can ask the questions here. And besides all of those issues right now, what particular practices would you put in place if you were on city council today to deal with this and make certain that the city is transparent with their issues and dealings?
Okay. Well, I think one of the first things that I'm going to do is make certain that I have major communications with each constituent within my community. So that's something that has to start first. And the people in my community need to know that they can call on me and they can contact me and that they will hear from me and they can communicate with me. Now, if I'm elected in terms of being on the board, on city council, I think we need to bring all of the various departments together before we could just go through and say, hey, this needs transforming, because we had one mayor for 40 years and we have a new mayor, but some of the same people have been there for a number of years, who are excellent in their job and they're used to procedures and everything that's going and processes. But that was during that mayor's time, and a lot of things have changed there in terms of the way we look at things, such as we just recently went through the same issue or independent audit with the police department through illumination project, and then we went there with best practices. Then there was a demand that we go through and have an independent audit of the police department for bias and everything. Well, somewhere in there in the midst, we ended up losing a very dedicated and engaged police officer and to another city. And so now I feel like that alone should have given us an opportunity, or city council an opportunity, to say, well, let's look at other departments in terms of what we're doing, and transparency is one, so that we can make certain that the constituents, each of our constituents, feel that we are being open, transparent, and if there are areas of engagement that they're feeling uncomfortable with, then let's talk about it. Let's know, and then let's bring those departments and things to place. Too often when we go through and we're talking about transparency and change, we're going through saying you're doing something wrong, so we're going to go through and we're going to throw everything open and we're going to investigate to find out where you're wrong, instead of going through in terms of what is the most proactive way that would allow engagement and trust, and that I hear you and that I'm giving you what I'm answering, what you want, and I'm satisfying everything to show you that you can trust me, that I'm a person, that we are a city with representatives that will honor values and engagement, and that we're about collaboration and the best thing for the city overall, not in terms of something in terms of where we are, let's say, we got a news flash that's not positive, that does not go in line with our being a livable city and the number one tourist place to be.
Reverend Christian King, thank you for putting up with me and my technology errors. But thank you for your time on Quintin's Close-Ups, and I'm going to have you back on October, obviously, along with all the other city council members.